So today we're going to talk about the add-on games. Sonic CD for the Sega CD, and Knuckles Chaotix for the Sega 32X. I never understood the concept of making a console peripheral that relies on its own power supply. If it can make graphical and sound improvements to a system, why not just work on a new console? Mind you that the Sega CD and the 32X wasn't all that bad, as there was quite a handful of really good games on them, but I felt like a lot of them could have been saved for a later console, or in the case of some games, they would have fit just fine on the Sega Genesis. But I digress. Before I go on, I want to mention that these are the only two games in this marathon I never played growing up on their respective consoles. In fact, my first time playing these were on the PC. Sonic CD was my first PC game ever, along with Sonic R, but you probably know all about that by now. Meanwhile, my first experience with Chaotix was actually during middle school, during my emulation days. In fact, it was actually the first game I emulated, besides Love Peanut dating sims, don't ask. As far as the plot goes for Sonic CD, Robotnik captures his little planet over Never Lake. No, really, that's apparently what it's called, as Robotnik wants to collect all the time stones to, as you predict, take over the world. Sonic soon travels to Never Lake to save Little Planet, and along the way he meets Princess Sally. Princess Sally? Hold on a second. Well, that's not even close. Anyway, Sonic meets Amy Rose, who ends up being captured by Metal Sonic, making his first appearance in this game. As far as gameplay goes, well, did you enjoy the first Sonic one and wish you control like you did from Sonic 2 on? Well, this definitely delivers on that. And Sonic CD also introduces a new move that Sonic can use, which only appeared in Sonic Triple Trouble, strange enough, the Super Peel Out. It offers extra speed, which is useful for traveling forward or back in time, which brings us to the main gimmick in Sonic CD, time traveling. You see, in order to save Little Planet, you must create a good future, which can be done through two methods. The previously mentioned time traveling, which you can do by using these past and future lampposts, and to activate them you must gather enough speed, which the levels give you plenty of opportunities to, but there's gonna be those moments where it just plain doesn't work. When you travel back in time, you must hunt down the robot monitors and the Metal Sonic projectors, which are located in various spots throughout the past, and without a guide it can be a bit of a pain tracking them all down, since for the first time, these stages are more open-ended. Now mind you, that's not a bad thing because I enjoy exploration, but some of these levels I want to be done as soon as possible, such as Stardust Speedway. I don't know what it is, but due to its maze-like setting, I almost got sick while playing through this stage. And there's Wacky Workbench, which... yeah. The other method involves a special stages, and I'm gonna be honest here, guys. I am terrible at this special stage. And it can't just be me, but even in the remaster version, I find it to be such a chore to get the time stones. However, you only need to do one or two of those methods in order to complete the game, and it's actually nice that this game actually gives you two opportunities to do so, though ultimately the reward is, do you want to see Little Planet leave, or not? As far as the bosses go, I don't know if it's just me, but they appear to be more based around obstacles as opposed to straight-on attack like they have been in the past, which actually is kind of clever and changes the pace a bit, though as a result I don't find them as memorable. In fact, the one boss fight I remember the most was the Metal Sonic race in Stardust Speedway, which is probably the best boss battle in this game, but it's kind of anticlimactic in a way. Coming from the box art, I was expecting a Sonic vs. Robot Sonic fight, similar to how it was done in Sonic 2, and Sonic 3. However, it is iconic, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't like it. What's unique about Sonic CD is the soundtrack is different between the Japanese and North American release. Why this is, I don't exactly know, but thanks to the remaster version, you can listen to both of them just fine. Now I know everyone has their favorite between the two soundtracks, but I really enjoy songs from both about equally, as they feel appropriate to the atmosphere of Sonic CD. And they both have their bad sides too. I am not particularly fond of the North American boss music. If my nightmares could have a soundtrack, this would be it. As for You Can Do Anything, it's definitely an awesome song, don't get me wrong about that. The fact that it's a remix from Green Hill Zone and the other Sonic 2 is definitely a plus, but in terms of a theme song, I just don't find it to have the same appeal as Sonic Boom does. Maybe the rapping part was just too silly to me, I don't know. So instead of picking between the two, I'm gonna be decisively indecisive. Overall, Sonic CD is a really fun and underloved game. And while some Sonic fans consider it to be the best Sonic game of all time, it's not really something I agree with, but it's definitely a game I can recommend to everyone. And if you want a version of this game to play, definitely go for the remastered version. Not only is it the definitive version of this game, but it's also the cheapest way to get it. And Tails is a playable character. That's a thing. So that leaves us with Knuckles Chaotix. You know, it's actually kind of bittersweet to finally talk about this game. Back when I started the channel about 4 years ago, This was actually one of the very first games I wanted to talk about, but due to the capture card I had at the time, I was unable to. And not to mention earlier this year, Some Call Me Johnny did a review on this game, and, well, if you watch my channel, more than likely you watch Some Call Me Johnny. I figured, why not talk about this game finally? I mean, it's the perfect year to be a Sonic fan. Sonic Mania already came out, and it's an amazing game. And Sonic Forces is on the way, and it's... looks like a thing. The premise of this game takes place on the mysterious island where Robotnik finds the Chaos Rings, and soon he builds his base there, the Neutrogic? Anyway, Mighty the Armadillo, Espiel the Chameleon, Charmy Bee, and Vector the Crocodile soon come to the island for reasons, and get captured by Robotnik into the Combi Catcher. Knuckles then comes to the island to find out about the Chaos Rings. That's pretty much it, if you're reading the Japanese manual. The North American one talks about Carnival Island, and Knuckles is the guardian of it apparently. It also mentions something about a Power Emerald, which, as far as I'm aware, is not something that exists in the Sonic canon. And then there's talk about the Chaotix being Knuckles' old friends, and yeah, just stick to the Japanese manual. As far as gameplay goes, it's what you would expect from a Sonic game in 1995. However, some of the characters have their own unique abilities. Knuckles is back and he can climb and glide walls like he did in Sonic 3. Mighty, besides making his last actual appearance in this game,
tell me where in the world is
Mighty Armadillo. Mighty controls basically like Sonic would, but he can bounce off of walls. Espiel, who I originally thought was going to be the main character of this game, can run up walls. Vector can also climb walls. He does have a dash move and he can listen to some really good music. Come to think about it, the only character that doesn't have a wall ability seems to be Charmy Bee, who is just outright broken. And by that I mean you can breeze through these stages quickly if you're using them. Then there's the two non-playable characters, Heavy and Bomb. And they suck. They suck a lot. Well, not so much for Heavy because you can use him as a meat shield, while Bomb is more of a hindrance than anything. Anytime he gets hit, he explodes as a part of his namesake. My advice for this game, avoid Bomb like, well, a bomb. The main gimmick of Chaotix relies on the combi system, aka tethering. You have a second character with you at all times, and it's not really implemented too well. The idea is for you to gain extra speed and unlock certain passageways using your partner, but more often than not, you're going to get jerked around trying to make it past the stage. And for some reason, all the stages minus the introduction one requires you to climb your way instead of going from left to right to complete a stage, which isn't bad, but all these stages go on for 5 acts. Why? In between stages, there is a randomizer, but it doesn't help that you have to go through each one 5 times. And the fact that the stages barely, and I mean barely, have any difference between them makes me feel like I'm playing the same zone repeatedly. The only one that has a slight difference would be Amazing Arena, but the less I say about that, the better. There are monitors which help you out with the new mechanics in this game, such as the combination ring, which prevents you from losing all your rings at once, which does make a comeback in Sonic Mania. There's also a monitor that changes your partner, one that switches you with your partner, and one that makes you or your partner bigger, which all sound great, but only the first one's really useful. Bonus stages are back. You can find them by jumping into these giant rings, and going into this game after Sonic 3, it can be quite off-putting. At first I thought they were the special stage rings, and it doesn't help they look exactly like the special stage rings. But let me tell you, these bonus stages are terrible. You're in a free-falling section and the goal is to collect more rings, but as a caveat, you lose rings the longer you stay in. It's rather counterintuitive. Then there's the special stages, and it's definitely unique, I'll give it that. Having multiple pathways, the fact that you're collecting blue spheres, and the special stage itself loops in case you didn't get them all. Provided you have enough rings before you enter this special stage for it to matter, which makes the combination ring monitor more useful. All in all, it's a nice concept for the special stages, but there's one thing that ruins the whole experience. Depth perception. I can't even count the amount of times I've either collided with something I didn't mean to, or I had to take a leap of faith because I could have fallen into the abyss below. Yeah, you can actually fall in this special stage. There is nothing more aggravating than getting so close to completing one and accidentally mistiming a jump. What happened there? I fell through the ground! You want to know what's the sad thing about going through all the special stages? The payoff is far from worth it. None of the characters get a special form, unless you count whatever this is. I think it's referred to as Wacana. I don't know, you can unlock them in the sound test. But what you get for collecting all the Chaos Rings is a good ending. And just that, a good ending. And a rather lousy one. I mean, it's just a title screen, except Sonic and Tails are there for some reason. I hate to admit it, but the bad ending, while horrifying, is definitely more exciting by comparison. Basically, I got Mario Sunshine. However, outside the combi system, the special stages will be the most challenge you'll get out of this game, because Chaotix is relatively easy. Not the easiest game in the franchise, mind you, but there doesn't seem to be much in terms of obstacles or badniks, and now that I think about it, there's no life count in this game either. Even the bosses don't put up much of a fight. I mean, sure, they have a cool opening scene before them, well, except for the final boss, which doesn't have an official name as far as I've seen. I mean, it's a giant red Metal Sonic. Did he transform from Metal Sonic? I mean, the Archie comics implied that he transformed from Metal Sonic, but the game gives no indication otherwise. Despite being the final boss, it's just as easy, if not easier, than the previous bosses. The only boss I had trouble with was the semi-final boss. Not because it's hard, but it's tediously long and luck-based. So in conclusion, Knuckles Chaotix is actually an okay game. I mean, it's definitely underwhelming compared to the other Sonic games I talked about in this marathon, but it's not horrible. I definitely wasn't too stressed out playing this as opposed to something like Sonic Fighters, and I don't know how to explain it, but I enjoyed my time playing this game. Unfortunately, if you want to try this game out, the best way I would recommend is through emulation, because unlike the other games I went over, Chaotix never saw a re-release, not even on Gems Collection, which had games I found to be of worse quality, like Sonic Fighters. And while I don't think Chaotix is a bad thing, it's not worth these prices. And on top of that, you would need the Genesis, the 32X, and a copy of the game itself. And all that together is not very cheap. So that takes care of all the 16-bit, classic style Sonic games. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at the game we've all been waiting for. I mean, who hasn't been? So, let's look at Sonic Mania for the end of this marathon. Thank you guys again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.